That summer when I was 18, Steele led me to taste the forbidden fruit. I endured the pain but secretly rejoiced the entire night, believing my 6-year unrequited love had finally blossomed into fruition. Until the next day, I overheard his friends teasing him. "Not bad, Ethan, the class beauty broke you in." Feeling embarrassed, I was about to quietly slip away. Then I heard Ethan's casual reply. "Wanted to pursue the campus queen, but was afraid she'd think I'm too inexperienced. Just using Seraphina to practice my technique first." I said nothing, silently changing my university application from Boston to Los Angeles at the last moment. Ethan's words were like a sudden thunderclap in the clear sky, striking me without warning. My mind went blank instantly. On this hot summer afternoon, I felt a chill throughout my entire being. The conversation inside the classroom continued, and the others seemed stunned for a moment before speaking again. "That's our Ethan, even the class beauty is only good enough for practice. Doesn't that make her like the concubine of a rich family in ancient times?" Ethan laughed carelessly. "Don't talk nonsense, she didn't lose out, okay?" Someone immediately chimed in. Yeah, the class beauty is a bit too thin, compared to the campus queen, her figure is." Ethan impatiently threw a book at him, interrupting his comment. "It was just an impulse, the atmosphere was right, and besides, I thought she was holding back." The others exchanged knowing glances and teased him. "Didn't think the class beauty was the kinky type. TSK, our Ethan is just too charming, why not eat the meat that's right by your mouth?" The class beauty has been chasing after Ethan for so many years, she finally got her wish, probably wanted to pounce on you long ago. The laughter inside the room grew louder. I bit my lower lip tightly, clenching my fists. I used all my strength to steady myself, so as not to fall at the classroom door. Footsteps approached from the end of the corridor. I snapped back to reality and fled the scene in a panic. In my confusion, I hid in a toilet stall. Tears of hurt and humiliation had already burst forth. Ethan's words echoed repeatedly in my mind, word for word, almost completely destroying all my self-esteem. If I hadn't heard it with my own ears, I would never have believed that he, the man who was intimately entangled with me last night, was the same person. So it turns out you can do such intimate things without love. And you can lie and deceive even when you're most passionate and out of control. The fruit I foolishly thought I had cultivated was nothing more than a joke in other people's mouths. The more I cried, the sadder I became. But I didn't dare to make a sound, my body trembling uncontrollably. After a long while, a message notification popped up on my phone. It was from Ethan. "Take a taxi home yourself, I have a class party tonight, it's not convenient to bring you." I didn't reply. He added another sentence. "Remember to buy the morning after pill yourself, I'm busy today. Be sure to take it, be a good girl." I stared at these two messages, speechless for a long time. Yesterday, from dusk till dawn, Ethan tormented me again and again. In the end, both of us were exhausted. Before he fell asleep holding me, he specifically murmured twice. "I wasn't well prepared the first time, I'll definitely remember to buy you medicine during the day." He even told me that girls should protect themselves, and the morning after pill must be taken, otherwise it would be very harmful to the body. At the time, I felt that he was very responsible towards me, and I had finally found my happiness. But now, in an instant, I became much more sober. I pinched my palm hard, forcibly stopping the tears. I wiped away my tears and walked out of the bathroom, composed. Embarrassed to go to the pharmacy, I only bought the pill online. After the delivery guy left it at the door, it took me a long time before I dared to sneak out and retrieve it. After swallowing the pill with tears in my eyes, I seemed to have lost all my strength and just sat blankly on the carpet. Ever since I moved next door to Ethan's house, I had been following behind him like a little tail, for 10 years. I never thought about what the world would be like without him. Nor did I dare to imagine it. But from now on, it would only be me. Outside the floor-to-ceiling window, the lights turned on one by one, and then went out one after another. I don't know how much time had passed when my best friend, Mia, made a video call to me. "Seraphina, why didn't you come to our class party with Ethan tonight? That Janie Vance from the literature class came, and while you weren't here, she kept trying to cozy up to Ethan, it was disgusting to watch." After Mia finished speaking, she turned the camera. In the dim corner of the room, Ethan and campus queen, Janie Vance, were sitting close together. Janie Vance was wearing a crop top and tight jeans tonight, making her waist appear even slimmer and her legs longer. They were clearly separated from the people around them. Even their conversation seemed to be whispered intimately. I could feel the strong ambiguous atmosphere even through the screen. My chest constricted uncontrollably. Ethan only said he wanted to pursue her this afternoon, it seems he has already succeeded tonight. Janie Vance drew male on female push-ups in the truth or dare game, and needed to pick a male guest to cooperate. Unsurprisingly, Ethan immediately stood up. The crowd began to cheer. Janie Vance blushed and obediently laid down on the sofa. Ethan propped himself above her, doing dozens of push-ups in one breath. He was very restrained throughout the whole process, trying his best to avoid touching Janie Vance's body. Until the last one, whether it was because he was finally exhausted, or whether Ethan did it on purpose. He couldn't hold on and fell directly onto Janie Vance. The surrounding screams were even louder, almost lifting the roof off. Ethan and Janie Vance's faces turned even redder. Amidst the crowd's wild cheers, Ethan simply lowered his head and kissed Janie Vance. The two of them passionately French kissed, oblivious to everyone else. It lasted a full 3 minutes before they reluctantly separated. For these long 3 minutes, I stared at the screen without blinking, so dazed that I almost forgot to breathe. My heart ached as if it was being torn apart alive. I wanted to cry, but I had cried too much this afternoon and didn't replenish water, so I really had no tears left. TSK, Seraphina, did you see that? They kissed with strings of saliva, he's so in love. Mia sighed and turned the camera, leaving the room. She found a quiet corner and seriously advised me. Seraphina, don't blame me, you won't give up if you don't see it with your own eyes. My throat was dry and hoarse, and the syllables I uttered were incomprehensible. Yeah, I don't blame you. I only blame myself for being so stupid for so many years. Thinking that it was me who was always allowed to be by Ethan's side, that the position would always be mine. I just can't stand Ethan. Why would he pretend to be an innocent boy and keep you hanging on, knowing that you've liked him for so many years, watching you sink deeper and deeper? You saw it clearly just now. I really hope you consider it carefully. Don't let him delay you for 4 more years in college. No, Mia. I interrupted her, stating calmly. I won't give myself another chance. Mia, I've decided, I'm going to the same university in Guangzhou with you. But you have to promise to keep it a secret for now. After speaking, I opened my laptop in front of her to prevent myself from hesitating. Without the slightest hesitation, I changed my first choice to that famous university in Guangzhou at the last moment before the deadline. Mia was naturally overjoyed, jumping up and down. She had been begging me to apply to the same university for a long time. But because when I first entered high school, Ethan and I had agreed to work hard together and go to his dream university in Boston after the college entrance exam. It had the aviation major he had loved since he was a child. So even though I didn't like the cold north that much, and had no feeling for that polytechnic university, I had always treated it as my goal for the 3 years of high school. As longtime neighbors, both families were happy to see us apply to the same university. Everyone, including me, thought that Ethan and I would naturally become a couple after adulthood. But now, I couldn't find any reason to go to Boston anymore. Or rather, after today, if I were to stick to Ethan like I used to, I would despise myself. Now I just wanted to hide far away. It didn't matter where I went, as long as Ethan wasn't there. If he was in the north, then I would go to the south. Before going to bed, I filled the bathtub with water, wanting to wash myself completely clean. But after taking off my clothes, the blue and purple marks on my skin were still very obvious. The memories of last night surged back into my mind uncontrollably. The temperature of the boy's hot skin when we were tightly embraced, the burning breath by my ears when he was passionate, the lingering warmth seemed to still linger around. I shook my head violently, wanting to shake off these absurd thoughts. Then I found the roughest bath towel and scrubbed my skin over and over again, until my whole body turned red before stopping. Trying clumsily to erase this memory, the most unbearable memory of my life. The result was that I was in so much pain that I couldn't sleep well all night. As expected, Ethan didn't send any more messages. Breaking the habit of saying goodnight to each other every night for 6 years, since we had our phones. That's good too. This day will come sooner or later anyway. Let's start breaking the habit from tonight. I fell asleep groggily until almost dawn. The next morning, I was still fast asleep when I suddenly felt someone planting a light kiss on my forehead in my dream. I woke up with a start. What I saw when I opened my eyes was a familiar chin and Adam's apple. The scent that enveloped me was Ethan's favorite cedar fragrance, and a faint, unfamiliar lemon scent. I almost forgot that Ethan always knew the password to my front door. Seeing me wake up, Ethan simply moved down, chuckling as he tried to kiss my lips. I hurriedly turned my head to avoid him. I pushed him away with my backhand and hid on the other side of the bed. Ethan was stunned for a moment, laughing at me. Why are you still shy? Huh? I didn't speak, I just pulled the quilt over my head. Ethan scolded me while pulling my quilt away. Seraphina, you're getting bolder. You didn't even say goodnight to me last night, and you dared to turn off your phone to sleep. And now you're hiding from me? He was quick and nimble, and got into my quilt in one fell swoop. Before I could react, I was completely encircled in his arms. Be good, I've told you so many times, you can't skip breakfast. I specially went for a half-hour morning run to bring it to you, your favorite crab roe buns, I waited in line for a long time. Do you want to get up and eat now, or do you want to be eaten first? His breath was extremely close to me, and his hand followed suit. Waking up from the chaos, I struggled desperately. But being 5 feet 3 inches, I was no match for a 6 feet 2 inches man. I really couldn't figure out what he was thinking. He already has Janie Vance, why is he still provoking me? After struggling for a long time, I was panting and out of breath. I couldn't break free, but he held me even tighter. What's wrong again? Are you angry? Just because I didn't take you to the party last night? It's such a small thing? I didn't speak. He buried his head in the hollow of my neck and laughed. Let me guess, your good friend gave you a heads up? It was just a game, is it worth being jealous over? Why are you still like before? If I get a little closer to other girls, you like to sulk. I was so angry that I couldn't even speak. Remembering what I learned during military training, I suddenly raised my knee and kicked him in the groin, taking advantage of his pain to run off the bed quickly. Seraphina. Ethan gritted his teeth, his face flushed. I quickly put on a coat over my pajamas and hurried to the living room. I didn't want to be in the same room with him, especially my bedroom. Not long after, Ethan also came out, looking angry and helpless. After a long while, he seemed to remember, and asked casually. By the way, you should have taken the pill yesterday, right? Don't cause any trouble, I won't be able to explain it to your aunt and uncle. Ethan walked to the dining table, picked up soy milk and handed it to me. Be good, eat something to fill your stomach first before getting angry, your stomach isn't good anyway. I didn't speak, nor did I take it. Ethan's hand holding the soy milk was frozen in the air for a long time, finally losing patience. What is it because of? Seraphina, there has to be a reason and a limit to throwing a temper tantrum, right? I replied coldly. I'm not worthy. Ethan also got angry, and slammed the soy milk heavily on the coffee table. He used too much force, the plastic cup cracked, and all the soy milk instantly spilled onto the carpet. What do you mean? Who do you think you are, Seraphina? Just because we slept together once, you want to control me? Do you know that makes me feel suffocated? His tone was more ferocious than ever before. Instantly, I burst into tears, without half a second of preparation. Yesterday's humiliation and grievances rushed to my heart together. Ethan seemed to have not expected me to suddenly cry so violently, and was at a loss for a moment. He apologized in frustration. I'm sorry, I drank too much last night, I was a little impulsive just now. As Ethan spoke, he squatted down beside me, reaching out to wipe away my tears, but I dodged him again. He was stunned, his hand frozen in midair. Just as he was about to continue coaxing me, his phone suddenly rang. He only glanced at it, his face changed drastically, and he immediately got up to leave. I have something urgent to deal with, you calm down by yourself first. You're going to college, and you're still being childish, who can stand you in the future? Less than half an hour after he left, Mia sent me a screenshot. Janie Vance's Moments post. Another sunny day, said I was hungry, and a loving breakfast magically appeared immediately. Feels like a two-way crush. The accompanying picture was of the same packaged crab roe buns that were on my dining table. I didn't reply. I just silently wiped away my tears and squatted down to carefully clean up the soy milk that Ethan had spilled. I tried for a long time, but was saddened to find that the stain on the wool carpet had penetrated deep into the fibers and couldn't be wiped away. In a fit of anger, I simply threw away the entire carpet. Anyway, this was the carpet that Ethan and his parents had spent an entire afternoon picking out and carrying back from their trip to Nepal as a gift for me. By the way, I sorted out everything that Ethan had left in my house, as well as all the gifts, big and small, that he had ever given me. Even all the photos of me and him, I organized them one by one. I was busy all day before I packed them all up and threw them away. I figured he wouldn't want these junks anymore. After Ethan left that day, there was no news for several days in a row. I assumed he was having a smooth progress with the campus queen. Or maybe he was waiting for me to bow my head. Every time we had a Cold War in the past, I was always the first to bow my head, without exception. But this time, I didn't look for him. There was no need to look for him anymore. I blacklisted his WeChat and phone number, changed the password to my front door, and deleted all my social media accounts. After doing all this, I called my parents, who were on a business trip, to discuss it. I told them that I wanted to go to America to visit my aunt during the summer vacation. My plan was that by the end of the summer vacation, I would directly go south with Mia to register for university. Besides Mia, no one else knew that I had applied to a university in Guangzhou. This plan should perfectly avoid all opportunities to meet Ethan. My mother teased me on the phone, "Oh, are you going on vacation with Ethan?" I made an excuse to deny it, not wanting to explain so much. I just told her that I wanted to accompany my aunt and grandma. I begged my dad to buy me the nearest flight, and I prepared to fly over that night. When I went out, I unfortunately met Ethan's mother at the villa entrance. She warmly greeted me. "Seraphina, why are you here alone? Didn't Ethan come to pick you up? Didn't he say he was going to take you skiing in New Zealand? Have fun, your aunt fully supports you." I was a little strange. During the time I was preparing for the senior year exam, I did mention to Ethan that I wanted to go skiing in New Zealand and experience the winter in the southern hemisphere. But the way we are now, it doesn't seem appropriate to travel together. However, I was running out of time, so I just randomly responded to her and left. But what I didn't expect was that I actually ran into Ethan at the airport. He was with a group of friends. Janie Vance was also there. Ethan was carrying a women's bag in one hand and had his arm around Janie Vance in the other. They were walking at the end of the crowd. From time to time, Janie Vance would turn her head to say something to him, and Ethan would always cooperate with her, patiently bending down to listen. Unlike us, Ethan had been a head taller than me since I was a child, and he got taller and taller. When I was with him, I always had to jump up and down and look up to talk to him. It turns out that he will take the initiative to bow his head to the people he really cares about. I took a deep breath. I told myself to have some backbone. What he does has nothing to do with me, slap myself if I think about it again. But there seemed to be only one way to the boarding gate. I could only follow them from a distance. Finally, I reached the fork in the road. Ethan seemed to be getting a little absent-minded. He made several phone calls, but it seemed like none of them went through, and he fiddled with his phone for a long time. Finally, he borrowed a phone from a friend and went to the restroom with a gloomy face. Not long after, my phone suddenly rang. It was still an unknown number. "Seraphina, you're in a big mood this time. If I don't look for you, you won't take the initiative to look for me, right? You even blacklisted me? If you have the ability, just never look for me. Wait until you go to college in Beijing. I'll see who will take care of you when you're unfamiliar with the place." Ethan's tone was unkind, and he scolded me for a long time in one breath. I didn't speak, there was no way to answer this. But Ethan seemed even more angry. "I won't say much to you, quickly add me back on WeChat. I'm going abroad with a few friends to play for a few days, I may not be able to contact you by phone, don't worry and cry." I was too lazy to give him a single word. I hung up the phone directly and turned it off. Watching Ethan return to his original place with a dark face from afar. He pulled Janie Vance up angrily, and without hesitating, walked directly towards the left boarding gate. I sighed and turned to the right as well. During the days when I was in America with my relatives, I acted very happy. I deliberately kept myself busy, filling my daily life with various itineraries, trying to avoid the gaps where I might start thinking wildly. Nor did I add back his contact information as Ethan requested. However, Mia and other friends would still send me updates on Ethan from time to time. Ethan and his friends seemed to have played in New Zealand for many days. For some reason, he would carefully post on his moments every day. Completely different from Ethan, who used to be too lazy to post one for months. Sometimes it was a short video of him skiing quickly on the slopes, sometimes it was a lavish meal and an all-night party, and most of the time it was a happy group photo of everyone making funny faces at the snow resort. Even though I didn't want to pay attention. But for some reason, many friends would take the initiative to share it with me. Everyone was curious to inquire about why I didn't go to New Zealand with Ethan. I didn't know how to explain it, so I just said that there were things going on with my relatives in America. Except for Mia, who would directly scold Ethan as a scumbag every time, everyone else in front of me looked like they wanted to say something but didn't. I knew that they might have seen some clues as well. In every group photo Ethan posted, he and Janie Vance were close together, almost inseparable. But that position next to him had been mine for many years. Whenever I saw these, my face would be calm, but my heart would always ache a little. After all, it was my first love, and someone I had truly liked for a very, very long time. When I woke up in the middle of the night, I would also be pathetic and sad for a while, and occasionally feel unwilling. But every time I thought of those hurtful words, I would silently slap myself in my heart. I admonished myself over and over again. "Seraphina, don't be a cheapskate, don't let people look down on you even more. Just bear with it, bear with it. Once the withdrawal period is over, everything will definitely get better." We lost contact for a whole month. This was the longest Cold War since I met Ethan. Distance and time are good medicine, and I survived the most uncomfortable period. Just when I almost wouldn't think of Ethan at any time, he changed his number and made a long-distance call to me. "Seraphina, you're quite capable, leaving me alone and running off to America, and you've been playing for so long. The summer vacation is about to end if you don't come back. Have you forgotten that you promised to travel with me?" Perhaps because he hadn't spoken to me in a long time, there was a hint of caution in his complaining tone. I still didn't want to talk to him. Just as I was about to hang up, Ethan's mom snatched the phone away. "Seraphina, are you having fun over there? That Ethan didn't tell me anything, and I only found out that you two had a fight. Don't hold it against him, let him apologize to you in person when you come back. By the way, Ethan received his acceptance letter today, yours should be coming soon too. When are you planning to come back to hold the college admission banquet? Auntie has prepared a surprise for you. Ethan's mom had always been very nice to me since I was a child, like a close elder. I couldn't bear to hang up on her, so I had to listen to her rambling on. Auntie, I'm not planning to hold a college admission banquet. My parents are both very busy, flying all over the world. It's enough for the relatives to have a cloud gathering online. I probably won't be returning to China for the time being, I'll probably just come back to register for school when the semester starts. Before I could finish speaking, Ethan switched back on the other end. His breathing was heavy, and I could feel his anger even across the Pacific Ocean. Seraphina, I've already taken the initiative to lower my head to you, how long are you going to sulk? If you don't come back, don't blame me for going to Beijing first without waiting for you. He threatened coldly, and after a long time, he didn't hear a satisfactory response, so he asked again. Think carefully, don't regret it. I hung up the phone directly. And blacklisted this number as well. After spacing out for a while, I decided to go out for a walk, and my mom even made a video call to me. It turned out that my acceptance letter had also arrived home. Seeing the school on the acceptance letter, my parents realized that I had changed my major. They were very surprised. Seraphina, why didn't you discuss it with your parents before changing your major? Does Ethan know about this? His mom asked this morning if you had received your acceptance letter. Dad also leaned into the camera worriedly. Baby, how can we feel at ease with you going to Guangzhou alone? Aren't you most afraid of the heat and cockroaches? Do you dare to go to Guangzhou? Don't call Dad to catch cockroaches for you then, ha ha ha. I was a little speechless. I had to tell them a lot about how good it was to be admitted to this university now, and that I would go over with Mia, so there would be someone to take care of me. They still couldn't feel at ease. Did you have a fight with Ethan? You can't just change your major to such a faraway place on a whim. What if you regret it in a few days and want to find Ethan, and you have nowhere to cry? Yeah, if you two separate, it will be 4 years of long distance. You used to cry and say you wanted to come back to find Ethan even if you only went to Grandma's house for half a month during the summer vacation. The more I listened, the more uncomfortable I felt, so I simply explained it clearly to them once and for all. Ethan has a girlfriend, it's not good for me to stay so close to him. Mom and Dad, I always have my own life, and I don't want to just live in his world. So, please support my decision, and please keep it a secret for me first. Mom and Dad looked at each other, and remained silent for a long time, finally agreeing to me. They only asked me to return to China as soon as possible. There were not many days left before school started, and they wanted to spend more time with me. According to my mom, after Ethan got his acceptance letter, he went on a trip with his friends the next day. He hadn't been home for many days. Ethan's mom would ask my mom about my return date from time to time. On the day I returned to China, my parents came to the airport in formal attire to pick me up. After I woke up and got out of the car, I found that we had arrived at a 5-star hotel. I was still confused when my mom pulled me into the lobby. As soon as I went in, I saw Ethan, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. My footsteps stopped suddenly. Ethan was wearing a well-tailored suit, and he looked like a scene by standing casually by the fountain. After only one vacation, the boyish feeling had faded a lot, and he looked exactly like I had imagined him to be when he grew up. My heart was filled with mixed feelings, and the encounter I had avoided for so long came so suddenly. Seeing me stunned, Mom explained softly. Seraphina, today is Ethan's college admission banquet, so we just picked you up to eat together. My dad also added. Seraphina, didn't you say you didn't want to hold a college admission banquet? Ethan is considerate, and he specially asked his parents to set the date on the day you returned to China, so it's like celebrating for both of you. Ethan seemed to sense something, and casually turned his head, his eyes met mine. My heart skipped a beat. Even though I had prepared myself to face him when I came back from America, I was still a little intimidated when it came down to it. But Ethan reacted first. Just as he was about to come towards us, he was grabbed on the arm by Janie Vance, who suddenly appeared beside him. Janie Vance pulled him with her, smiling as she came over to say hello. Seraphina, you're back? That's great, I can finally get to know you formally today. I always saw you and Ethan together before, although I'm from the class next door, I've never had the chance to meet you, it's really a pity. She was so polite that I couldn't ignore her. I barely managed to squeeze out a smile and nodded, saying There was something unnatural about Ethan's face. Awkwardly, he said, what's so good about getting to know her? She's a petty person who likes to throw tantrums. I thought she had run off to America and wasn't coming back. I didn't answer, I didn't know how to answer. The sequins on Janie Vance's slim silver evening dress were shining brightly, making her glow, and she matched Ethan particularly well today. I looked down at myself, white t-shirt, jeans, canvas shoes, and my hair was messy from just waking up, as casual as if I had just gone to the post office. Mom suddenly remembered and whispered in my ear. Mom prepared the dress for you, you can go to the dressing room to change in a while. I nodded, then shook my head. There's no need, I'm not the main character. Ethan kept staring at me, with an unclear expression. Janie Vance's eyes were also scanning back and forth between me and him. The atmosphere suddenly became a little quiet and weird. Fortunately, a few friends came over at this time, and Janie Vance immediately pulled Ethan over to greet them. She looked like the lady of the house. I quickly took the opportunity to pull my mom and walk into the banquet hall. Ethan's college admission banquet only invited close relatives and friends to attend, so there were not too many people. Friends who knew me looked surprised to see me appear. I just smiled and said hello, pretending I didn't understand anything. But everyone's eyes were clearly curious. I could even hear a few close friends grabbing Ethan, the gossipmonger, in the corridor to ask him about the situation when I just went to the terrace to get some air. Didn't you say that Seraphina had a falling out with you because of the campus queen? She still can't let go and came back to look for you. Ethan chuckled softly. She just has a childish temper, she'll be fine after a couple of days of making a fuss. How many years have we been together, how could she really be willing to break up with me? That person sighed. Actually, Seraphina is pretty good too. After all, you've been together for so many years, and we're all envious of how obedient she is to you. On one side is a childhood sweetheart of many years, and on the other side is a heartthrob. It's a pity to give up either one. So what are you planning to do in the future? Ethan was silent for a while before speaking. To be honest, I also think Seraphina is very good. But I just feel like it's a loss. I'm still so young, how can a man only have one woman in his life? It's too boring to see the end at a glance. I always have to go out and see the scenery. But it doesn't delay anything, anyway, as long as I turn around, there will be someone at home to keep the lights on. That person was also silent. After a long while, he laughed and punched him. Scumbag. I couldn't listen anymore and quietly walked a little further away. The evening breeze blew, and I couldn't help but sniff, my eyes were getting hot again. I only hated that I was blind before and saw the wrong person. This banquet today made me feel terrible. Ethan's mom was especially happy to see me, and kept asking me about my well-being at the dinner table. Seraphina, the weather will be very dry when you go to Beijing, let Ethan accompany you to the IFC tomorrow to stock up on moisturizing skin care products. No need, Auntie, there are many shopping malls in Beijing, and online shopping is also very convenient. She smiled and agreed, and said to my mom. I also prepared a set of 4-piece bedding for Seraphina when I prepared it for Ethan, for all seasons. Especially since the winters in the north are very cold, I chose very thick ones, and I also bought several sets of down jackets. You're busy with work, so you don't have to bother preparing for Seraphina anymore. My mom was a little embarrassed. I'm afraid these are completely useless in Guangzhou. But not wanting to spoil her face, my mom had to express her gratitude politely. Janie Vance's face looked very bad beside her. But Ethan's mom didn't care, she still told me and Ethan. When you get to Beijing, you two will be the closest people. Ethan must take good care of Seraphina, don't make her angry again, you know? Ethan glanced at me casually. Humph, her wings are very hard, she doesn't need me to take care of her, she can fly on her own. The atmosphere became a little stiff, but Janie Vance suddenly interrupted the conversation. Auntie, my school is also in Beijing, don't worry, I will take good care of Ethan in the future. Besides, Seraphina is far away in Guangzhou, so it's not very convenient, is it? Before she could finish speaking, Ethan and his parents' faces changed. Guangzhou? They asked me in unison. Janie Vance was shocked. Ethan, didn't you know? The honor roll of admissions is hanging in the school. Oh right, it seems like you haven't been back to school. Everyone was staring at me. Under the pressure, I nodded silently. Mom helped me explain. Seraphina suddenly changed her major at the end, she wants to go to Guangzhou to study, that university is also very good, and it's her favorite major. Ethan didn't believe it, he grabbed my hand and confirmed again. Seraphina, aren't you going to the same university as me? I saw you filling out the application with my own eyes. My hand hurt from his grip, and I couldn't help but get angry. Yes, I just want to go to Guangzhou, is that any of your business? Ethan was incredulous, and then he laughed. Are you kidding me? You're someone who can jump directly onto me when you see a cockroach, do you dare to go to Guangzhou? I took out my phone album, found the high-definition acceptance letter photo, and showed it to him in front of his eyes. Ethan took the phone and enlarged it repeatedly, and finally laughed in anger. Amidst everyone's exclamations, he grabbed me and dragged me out of the banquet hall. He pulled me into the lounge and closed the door behind me. Ethan leaned against the door, forcing me to confront him without allowing me to escape. Seraphina, well done. In order to throw a tantrum, you actually forgot our agreement and went to Guangzhou to study without permission? I raised my head. Trying to muster up the courage, I confronted him. I also have my own ideas, why do I have to decide my life according to your preferences? Ethan, ask yourself, are you angry because of the agreement, or because I can't continue to be your bed-warming maid? Ethan's face turned pale. What do you mean? Don't say such harsh things, okay? We're all adults, wasn't that voluntary? Are you still minding that night? I was a little embarrassed, but I stubbornly met his gaze. Ethan, if you like someone else, you can say it openly, I won't shamelessly pester you. But you obviously don't like me, but you watch me flutter towards you like a moth, does that feel good? He still doesn't understand now. People won't say goodbye until all expectations are exhausted. After being told what he was thinking, Ethan's face turned from white to red, and he almost couldn't stand. What are you talking about? Listen to yourself, you. He stammered and couldn't continue. Seraphina, we've known each other since we were 8 years old, and now we're 18 years old. Since you chose to betray this relationship, then let's not even be friends in the future. In the end, he only left this sentence and ran away from the hotel. From that day until I left for school registration, I never saw Ethan again. Mia sent me a screenshot of his official announcement of his relationship, and I deleted it without even opening it. I also blacklisted all the friends related to him. There was really no need to pay attention anymore. Only on the day I went to Guangzhou, I ran into Ethan again at the airport, and Janie Vance was still standing beside him. When he passed by, he just greeted my parents and walked away angrily. He didn't look at me at all. We quickly dispersed, and no one looked back. Before checking in, I suddenly turned my head and happened to see Ethan also boarding the plane. He only glanced at me coldly, and disappeared into the entrance without looking back. The person who had been with me from childhood until now was finally completely bid farewell. Finally, we're not going the same way. Then in the future, I wish you all the best. I muttered in my heart. Later, we didn't hear from each other for a long time. I also specifically told my parents not to mention anything about the Zhang family in front of me. I arrived in a new environment and met many new friends, and joined many clubs, keeping myself busy every day. The unhappiness I had before was long forgotten. It turned out that the life of revolving around one person was really boring. Thinking of this, I actually started to agree with Ethan's point of view at the time. The world outside is so vast, and life is so long, why should you tie yourself to one person so early? I was very fortunate that the school I chose was in a place without severe cold. Although the return to the south and typhoon days were also very headache-inducing, and there were indeed many cockroaches. But all year round, I could look up and see beautiful flowers, and soon I couldn't remember what winter was like. During New Year's Day, a high school classmate came to Guangzhou to travel, and Mia and I took her to eat morning tea. She mentioned Ethan unintentionally. She said that he had broken up with Janie Vance a long time ago, and that there were so many universities on College Road that he had been dating around one by one, and had been in several relationships. He was always acting like he was playing the world, being carefree. Ethan is completely different from the high-cold, top student in class before, he's completely changed. If you see him again, you probably won't recognize him. I didn't say anything. Mia kept winking at her to change the subject, so the classmate didn't mention it again. We spent New Year's Eve on the Pearl River, and Mia asked me to make a wish during the countdown. After making it, I realized that this was the first time I had made a wish that had nothing to do with him. In my short life before, for as long as 6 years, all my wishes were related to Ethan. I was very happy that I had really let go. During my first winter vacation in college, I missed my parents so much. As soon as I finished the exam, I rushed home as soon as possible. But I didn't expect that Ethan would actually come to pick me up at the airport with my parents. After being apart for half a year, both of us have changed a lot when we saw Ethan again. He was thinner, his hair was dyed, but of course he still looked as good as before. I've always been bad at judging people since I was a child, but my aesthetics are still online. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known to foolishly follow him since I was a child. After only being stunned for a while, I smiled and walked over, greeting him generously. Ethan, you're here too. Ethan's hand that was taking my luggage froze in midair, looking at me in disbelief. Since childhood, the parents of both families have repeatedly asked me to call him brother. I was stubborn and never called him. Now that my state of mind is different, it came out very naturally. But Ethan seemed to have a hard time accepting it. A long time later, he took my luggage with trembling hands. Mom whispered in my ear to explain. We came out to pick you up, and we happened to meet Ethan at the door. He insisted on coming to help. I smiled, signaling her that it was okay. In the car, I couldn't wait to share the recent interesting stories from school with my parents, which made them laugh non-stop. No one paid attention to Ethan, but I noticed out of the corner of my eye that the corners of his mouth were secretly rising all the way. He seemed to want to sit in my house that day, but the three of us politely declined together. For the entire winter vacation, I went out early and returned late every day to practice driving, and always went out to play with a few high school classmates at night. I heard that Ethan came to look for me several times, but missed me every time. I was a little surprised. I didn't think there was anything between us that needed to be talked about. This year, Grandma and Aunt both came back for the New Year. On New Year's Eve, the family was particularly lively. After eating New Year's Eve dinner, the elders watched the Spring Festival Gala on the sofa, and the younger generation were learning to play mahjong. Ethan's family of 3 suddenly visited my house with large and small bags. "Our family is too deserted, don't mind if we come to join in for a mahjong partner?" Ethan's mom joked with a smile. In the past, our 2 families would spend the Spring Festival together. This year, because of my relationship with Ethan, my mom refused Ethan's mom's invitation to eat New Year's Eve dinner together. But you can't drive guests out when they come to your door. Ethan naturally sat next to me, watching me play cards. My cousins didn't know about me and him, and kept teasing us. I smiled and clarified one by one. Ethan's face looked a little bad. When we went out to set off fireworks at midnight, he grabbed me, seeming to want to say something. But my phone suddenly rang. My face turned a little red. I broke free from Ethan's hand and hid to the side to answer the phone. It was a local student from Guangzhou that I met when joining a club, named Xander Hughes. He also looks very good. Not the kind of cold handsome guy, but the kind of funny boy who loves to laugh. He is talkative and has many jokes, and I often laugh so hard that I can't stand up straight. He said that he called just because he was bored, in order to count down to the new year with us. I didn't think much about it, and didn't hang up the phone during the new year, letting him participate in our New Year's Eve celebration. Finally, before hanging up, he smiled. "Actually, I just wanted to be the first person to wish you a Happy New Year after 12 o'clock. Happy New Year, Seraphina." I smiled happily and blessed him too. After chatting for a while, when he was finally willing to hang up the phone, I turned around. Ethan with an icy face was standing behind me. I don't know how long he had been listening. "Boyfriend?" he asked hoarsely. "Not yet." I thought about it and answered honestly. Ethan was silent for a long time. I thought he had nothing to say and was about to go back to the living room to continue playing mahjong. But he suddenly opened his mouth again. "Boys from other places may not be reliable, it's better to find a local one who knows the background." I nodded. "Indeed, it's hard to know a person's heart, I'll investigate further. Thank you for reminding me, Ethan, you should settle down earlier too." Ethan seemed to have been pricked in some part of his heart, and without saying anything, he left the yard directly. I didn't think much about it. He has always been crazy, not just for a day or two. With a lover's filter in the past, I thought everything about him was good, but now. After that, I accompanied my grandma and parents to visit relatives everywhere, and then drove around everywhere, basically not staying at home. I didn't run into Ethan either. The winter vacation was very short, and I quickly returned to school. But the next day, I actually saw Ethan at the university gate. He looked haggard, and anyone who didn't know him would think something had happened. "Ethan, why are you here?" "I wanted to see what your university looks like, and by the way, see if you're doing well in Guangzhou." I smiled and replied, "It's very good, it's very delicious here, if you have time, you can search for a guide to eat it yourself." He was a little embarrassed and didn't answer me. "Seraphina, can't you accompany me to eat? Just once is fine." Before I could speak, a male voice interjected. "Sorry, handsome, I already asked Seraphina first, please take a number and wait in line next time." Xander Hughes walked over from the side, nervously standing between me and Ethan. Sparks flew between the two as they stared at each other. "Seraphina, you came back to school so early just for him?" Ethan's tone had an unspeakable emotion. I didn't know what he was thinking, but there was no need to explain anything to him. "Sorry, Ethan, we're going to eat, we'll go first." I nudged Xander, who was standing still. "Let's go, didn't you say you were going to some farmhouse to eat free-range chicken? It's a long way, let's go quickly." Xander was pulled away by me, giving Ethan one last glare. When crossing the traffic lights, I looked back. Ethan was standing at the school gate watching us. He looked particularly lonely in the shade of the trees. I don't remember where I heard a sentence, "After a breakup, women will come out after being depressed for a month. And men may realize what they have lost after a long time, and then they will start an emotional backlash." Ethan's emotional backlash seemed to have come too late. After playing the world for half a year and being silent for a winter vacation, he actually started to appear around me frequently again. I don't know what reason he used to ask the school for leave. He would always show up in Guangzhou from time to time. He started giving me all kinds of gifts, flowers, bags, jewelry. I refused them all. He would squat downstairs in my dormitory when he had nothing to do, and he wouldn't leave no matter how I tried to persuade him. As long as he squatted down to me, he would accompany me to class every day, and then accompany me to the cafeteria to eat. Xander was so stimulated by him that he sighed at me all day long. He would occasionally say sour and jealous words, making me laugh and cry. Ethan's mom also made a lot of phone calls and sent a lot of messages to me, saying that the school had already started contacting parents. Ethan was skipping too many classes, and if he continued like this, he might have to repeat a grade or be expelled. She pleaded with me earnestly, asking me to persuade Ethan well. I was so annoyed, I couldn't figure out what Ethan was thinking. He was wholeheartedly going to see the scenery outside at the beginning, and now he's turning around and acting deeply in love. So I simply confronted him directly. Ethan knew what I was coming for, and his emotions went out of control. Seraphina, why can that Hughes guy pursue you, but I can't? How long has he known you? How many years have we known each other? In this world, no one knows you better than me except your parents, and no one is more suitable for you than me. I was amused by him, and asked, Ethan, do you really not remember what you did in the past? Ask yourself, have you ever treated my sincerity seriously? You just enjoy the superiority of me chasing you, thinking that no matter what you do to me, I can't leave you, and arbitrarily manipulate my sincerity. After being said what he was thinking, Ethan was even more broken. Yes, I made some mistakes at the beginning. At that time, I was too young, and I felt that the whole world was full of temptations, and I didn't want to be controlled by you alone. I owe you a formal apology, Seraphina, I'm sorry. Ethan looked sincere, and suddenly softened his tone and begged me. But even if you treat me like a stranger, I can have the right to pursue you again. After leaving, I realized that I'm not used to living without you, and I can't imagine a future without you. Who can I share everything with? The evening breeze by the river was very strong, and I had a headache from the wind. I thought quietly for a long time before answering him. To be honest, since leaving you, I realized that mutual love doesn't require careful accommodation. I can be myself frankly, and my emotions don't have to be transferred by other people's will, so I suddenly discovered. Perhaps those stupid loves in my youth were just me being naive at the time. Ethan was stunned like he was struck by lightning for a long time. After a long while, he lowered his voice, his tone extremely aggrieved. But we agreed to go to college together, study abroad together, and then travel the world together. Are you going to break your promise about those things too? I was a little dazed for a while, nodded, and then shook my head. You broke your promise first, and I've already found someone I want to accomplish these things with. Ethan was a little broken, the corners of his eyes were red. Don't say it, Seraphina, please, don't say it. Looking at his gray and hurt expression, I finally couldn't help but persuade him. Maybe you don't really love me, you're just not reconciled. Ethan, you should also come out. I didn't wait for him anymore. Xander had been waiting for me on the opposite side of the road for a long time. I ran over, and he immediately took my hand. The ex-husband has finally been thrown off? Did you tell him that your cockroaches will be taken care of by me from now on, and he won't even think about killing one? I laughed and laughed, almost crying. Looking back, Ethan was still frozen by the river. People come and go on the street, some see you again, some see you again. And I and him finally drifted away, and we said goodbye like rain.